only a couple months now. I think I recognize her. Her smile is too enticing.
Welcome to Getting to the Truth in This Art. I am your host, Rob Lee, and today I am speaking with the curator of the Reginald F. Lewis Museum, Carol Rhodes-Dyson. Welcome to the podcast.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you. I'm loving it.
This is great. This is a treat. This is going to fit very well into the theme for this month. We're keying in on Black artists, Black business owners. This is going to be in that February offering. So I am looking very forward to getting some answers, getting some questions, some dialogue.
Good. Very good.
So I want to start off with those who are undipped, uninitiated. Give us those vital stats. And how did you know that art was going to be a career for you? Working within art was going to be a career for you? That
is, I have to really rewind because I have to go back to, I decided I worked for architects and engineers. My trajectory was nothing that I expected. Okay. Nothing. I worked for architects and engineers. I said, for the rest of my life, I want to be an architect. I want to do design. And then I realized I didn't really draw very well, but I was encouraged to go to the Art Institute, and I designed this house, and the director of admissions said, you have this great design eye. And so, but not a lot of art courses. I had not taken a lot of art classes. So when I got into the first Art Institute classes, I mean, these are all young people that had been artists since birth. And here I'm just getting there. And I was having to do all these for foundations. We had to do sculpture and painting and drawing. And I'm feeling a lot out of my league, but at the same time, still trying to accept and learn and see. And looking around one day in the class, I was told by my professor, you do artwork like Matisse and Moreau. You should go into researching them and finding out who they are and what their work is and try to capture that spirit. And I turned to the gentleman and I said, look, who are Black artists and what are they doing? That's what I wanted to emulate. I looked around in my city, Kansas City. There were 4 or 5 Black artists, and my ex-husband then was an excellent artist and had come out of the Kansas City Art Institute. But there were very few visible. Hank Smith, I think, was an artist in Kansas City. So there were a few Black artists around. But I wanted to know who was really, other than Gordon Parks, because Fort Scott, Kansas is a little bit down the road. So we all knew Gordon Parks, but who were other ones? And, if I'm doing this historical research and the Art Institute, we had to read, and Toni Morrison, we had to read a lot of literature that was postmodern, but, not very little other than Toni Morrison reflected a diverse experience. So that was then, when I asked who were artists and what are they doing, then that kind of set me on my journey. How did I know that art was going to be my life? Well, I decided at that point with that husband that we were going to open up a gallery, and which we did in Kansas City. It was called the Euphrates Gallery, and we exhibited artwork by people of color, trying to bring a diverse vision of art to that community, because it wasn't at that time. It's much better now. And that really, everything just kind of blossomed out of that. I did find at the Art Institute, I excelled in art history. Yeah. And at the same time, I got a little sick of Greek. I felt that there was more in the art history books. We kind of jumped over Africa. We went into the Greek and into the Roman art, yeah. But, Africa was just jumped over.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to have, again, in my experience, I wanted to have a broader experience because I knew that there was more to the world instead of just black and white. And there was a black experience, and I wanted to find that and experience that. So that set me on my course. Opening up the galleries, I then knew that was my career.
Yeah.
And I just have continued.
Thank you for sharing that. That's
kind of long,
great.
huh?
No. It's great. It's great. And it's one of those things where you have someone that just kind of sparks that nugget of interest. It's like, oh no, you do like this. It's like, no. Who are other people that I might look like, that I might have similar experiences? And
right.
Please.
I will also share with you that then, and I kept that in the back of my mind, who are black artists? I did research, but it was Gordon Parks. Let's go back to Gordon Parks, who came to the Art Institute and gave the graduation speech. And when he gave the graduation speech and he walked on the yard, I just buttonholed him. And that was when I said, how can I find out more about black artists and where they are and what they're doing? And he gave me a list from, the young ladies seeing from the Studio Museum of Harlem, yes, from and I'm sorry, I'm not. The names aren't coming up right now, but these were individuals that were very prominent in African American art history and culture. I wrote to them. They started sending me books to read, information. I just inhaled that because I wanted to know more about black art and who they were.
You have to do that deep dive, and again, it's
one of those things. It was a deep dive.
It's one of those things, and it's odd. Like when I travel, which has kind of gone away for right now, but when I travel, generally, what I try to do is get a temperature on what's in the museum, right? What's in the local museum, what's close around there, because I think traveling, part of it is, for me, absorb some art, get some culture,
Absolutely.
Damn it. And I like to also get a temperature on what's not in the museum, what's there from a creative standpoint, what's the creative district and what all of that looks like. And more often than not, maybe it's because of the cities that I go to, it's very black. It's what I'm looking for. It's
very black. Well, at that time, Kansas City, there was a black side.
Yeah.
And, and there's a lot of change. Most recently, there are African-American artists. The big gallery is the Nelson Atkins. And there are African-American artists that are local, the local black artists there that have exhibited at the Nelson Atkins. And that's a first. I remember 25 years ago, there was a meeting at the Nelson Atkins asking what is it that they can do in order to support African-American art. I said, buy some and put it in your collection. And that was 25 years ago. And they just kind of, exactly what they did.
Like what? It sometimes it's literally as simple as that. Like it's low hanging fruit there to support these things and, support these initiatives, support these artists, support that culture. And it gets missed because it's like, oh, it's more complicated than that. No, it's not.
No, it's not. It's not. But I think that since that time, I know that the Nelson Atkins has more, as I said, there's more pieces. I know that they are now exhibiting work by the local black artists, which I think is wonderful. And then they have the Kemper Museum, which has done some big exhibitions in terms of contemporary art. So, it continues to grow. And some really fabulous black artists have come out of the Kansas City Art Institute. There's a gentleman, I think, that's in New York right now. They came out of the Kansas City, two of them. Yeah. See, and it's unfortunate I'm not able to give these names, but he's in an exhibition I'm working with at the museum, Men of Change. And I read where he came out of the Kansas City Art Institute. And I was so happy to see that.
Yeah. So let's go back to the genesis a little bit, just for those that aren't quite getting it. From your standpoint and being a curator now, how would you answer that question around who are the black artists and what are they doing? Like right now, like what kind of work is coming out of like this crop that's out there right now that's getting that attention that you're seeing their names pop up regularly?
I think that we're the dream of our ancestors. And I think the Black artists that are working now are the dream of the Black artists, especially that came out of the 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. I think that while there was maybe a clash about Black aesthetics and this is the way Black artists got to be, there was a clash early on, but mainstream, there are so many African American artists that are doing mainstream work. I look at Derek Adams, Jarrell Gibbs, so Jeffrey Kent, Amy Sherrill. I mean, this is these are all people with the Baltimore ties.
Yes.
And that's just Imani Lewis, Brown. I mean, there's just LaToya Hobbs. I have a copy of one of her pieces here that I have on my wall. Yeah. It's a print. A Xerox print, okay, and those there's so much, and then you have the African connection of African artists that are also very, very big that are here in the United States. So it is it's an explosion. It's exciting. It's difficult to keep up with,
Yeah.
But I think that I was so glad to watch Jarrell in his conversation with Maya Rockymore Cummings and the director of, what is the name of the director of the BMA? They're going to kill me that I don't know his name. What is his name? Yes. And the conversation that they had for Bradford.
Yes.
Yeah, Mark Bradford. No, that's the artist, Mark Bradford. But it was such a wonderful conversation between the director of the BMA and Cummings's widow and Jarrell, and the discussion about Black art and just so much. Ernest Shaw. I mean, there's just so much in Baltimore, and in DC and in New York and Los Angeles. As I say, an explosion.
So from your vantage point as a curator whose work aims to support, amplify voices of creatives of color who've been made invisible by American culture, where do you see the future of curatorial representation of the artists of color going? Where do you see that moving? Is it a continuation of that explosion? Is it a shift to maybe amplify other voices? What are your thoughts around that?
Well, the thing is that when I went into the curatorial practice, they talked about the opportunities in the museum, but there's also opportunities outside of the museum. And that's the thing is that, yes, there's a few of us that get into the museum, and some are able to stay longer. But I think that the being able to amplify these voices, you have to do it at various locations. There's alternative spaces, such as Busboys and Poets, such as the just different spaces where they can promote or show artists of color that are emerging. You have to be creative and not just stay within the white walls, the four walls of the museum, because the art is changing and transforming, and that's what I think the curator has to really begin to not only focus on working in a museum, but how to promote. Are you going to do it online? Create these voices. I was looking at Victoria Valentine's Culture Type newsletter, and all the information that is available there in terms of African American art. And that's what I think about is the spaces, especially online, or spaces where we can organize and showcase African American artistic talent.
Yeah, I mean, I've not having any experience in that area, but also being a person that is in this kind of arts advocate, outsider artist like standpoint. I'm like, where there's a wall, where there's a space, and if
right, that's what exactly.
Yeah. Because like don't be such that, especially in an emerging kind of place, don't be such that I can't put this in a coffee shop. I can't put this here. I can't put, it's like, no, you can. Right.
You can. And I think that, and I, from my experience, the individuals, there are so many people that go into these coffee shops or restaurants. Sometimes these restaurants have 1 million or 2 or 3 million people that come through there. Yeah. So you got 1 million or 2. Seriously, I ain't lying. And there are 1 million or 2 or 3 million people that have seen your work and know your name. I had one artist who I exhibited at the Anacostia Busboys and Poets. And he and I talked a month ago, and he was doing something at the University of Baltimore. And they said, hey, man, we saw your artwork at Busboys. And I said, yeah. I've had a number of artists come back to me and say, Carol, I really have a lot of people that have seen my art at Bus. I'm like, yeah. There's a lot of people that go to Busboys and are taken aback. They may not be able to buy it or off the walls, but they remember your name.
It's one of those things that I hear a lot. It's meeting people where they're at and meeting people where they'll be. So
right
where I record this podcast on Fridays, it's a comedy club that's right there in one of the arts districts in Baltimore, because there are more than one. And whenever someone comes there that's a visual artist, I connect them with the executive director, because they got a bunch of bare walls. And that's me trying to do my piece of like, hey, man, put some of his art up there. Maybe you guys should have a conversation.
Right. And that's important.
Yeah. So tell me about now. This one is interesting. Tell me about your thesis exhibition, Creative Alchemy, the common source of art and science. How do you come up with ideas for exhibitions?
That's the point. They are some of them. I'm going to jump off on a spiritual tip. Sometimes they come in a dream. Sometimes the words and titles will come to me in conversations with people. Yeah. It's not simple. It's not simple. But they're questions. And what occurred was that I had been offered. I had done an exhibition for the Department of Art at Howard University, and the dean of the graduate school, Dr. Gary Harris, I remember that name. Gary Harris was introduced to me, and he said, Ms. Carol, we got 4 floors of wall space, so we need work down here. And the art department at Howard was not going to utilize that space. They could not put their collection in the in the interdisciplinary research building. So if you see it, it's these 4 stories. It's huge, and it was just fascinating. And I had to think about what would I put on these walls, and I have a love for George Washington Carver. And I started doing research. I was in an exhibition at Howard University where to conserve a legacy, where these HBCUs were paired to learn how to do art conservation. I learned about art conservation. It was not a choice to go into it because of their need. You had to have 2 or 3 years of chemistry, and I was about to graduate with and I wasn't going to mess with chemistry. But I still saw this fabulous work that was done by George Washington Carver, and found out he first was an artist. So knowing, 1, he was an artist, 2, knowing this deep spiritual mysticism that he worked out of, and 3, that he was a great scientist. Spirit spoke to him about these plants. Spirit spoke to him about so much. Yeah. So I said, let me think about doing something that's creative alchemy is more about spiritual
Yeah.
Spirit, art, and science. It's really three connections. And so that's what I did is I started looking at artwork, who were artists that I know that could connect on work with each floor of the interdisciplinary research building at Howard. So I felt that the introduction was a homage to George Washington Carver, which I did. And then Anne Bowie created this wonderful homage with objects that were in a circle. And plants. I had to have plants because that was his life.
Right.
So the biology department of Howard loaned me plants that I had to water every 2 or 3 days. Living in Baltimore at that time, that I would run down and I would do what I had to do. So that was the first floor, the introduction of understanding that art and science and spirituality can be interconnected. That there was this division, I think, in Germany, when we started thinking about, started thinking, and that's when a lot of things changed because these theories of life and changed, or made things, cause things to change. I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
And so that's when the divisions, and in Christianity there was a lot of division in with back in the day. I'm sorry. So the Constantinople, I think but let me not even go there. The point is that in an African origination, there was more of a unifying spirit, art, and science. Okay.
That makes sense.
And so, and part of that was what I was trying to bring back. So quickly, we went on the second floor was nanotechnology, very small. So we had some contemporary art that was on the second floor. Third floor was about biology. They did a lot of research on biology and Black people's genes and Black people, what could be done to help modify and health issues. And so I created, I got Renee Stout. We showed pieces of hers that showed about transformation, bodily transformation, mind transformation. And then also on the third floor, E.J. Montgomery had these little drawings that looked like the beginning of language, which, in terms of development of humankind. Yeah. That was the third floor, biology. The fourth floor was environmental science. And that's where we had Angelina Sumadre, who created a piece that was like a desk, but you couldn't tell whether it was a science desk or whether it was an artistic desk, because there were so many of these different kind of objects of somebody that was getting ready to create natural things. Yeah. And then we had Rosalind Cambridge, who did these environmental pieces that were put on the wall. So it was I enjoyed it. It was marvelous. There was a lot of stress, again, as it being a thesis, but it was, I think, again, started trying to bring those conversations about, instead of division, there's a lot of connection to.
Right. It sounds like a huge undertaking. So I understand the stress component. That was what but it was the grand design. It was the grand design. So yes. Now I'm going to shift it to something that's a little more current. The Robert Houston, Tell Our Story. What are some of the things that surprised you about that exhibit that you kind of learned in doing the research and putting things together for that exhibit?
I in terms of surprise, I think that, let me say the gift.
Sure.
Say the gift. The gift in doing the Robert Houston exhibition that included works by Joe Giordano, Devin Allen, and Dee Dwyer was, first of all, the research and understanding his influences by Gordon Parks. Gordon Parks again. And that and Gordon Parks's influences by Ralph Ellison, the photograph as a document as well as a symbol. Mm-hmm. So that helped me to then begin to look at Robert Houston's work a little, deeper. The whole idea for me is of the Black gaze beginning to give power and value. These photographers, the choice of weapons that were giving value to our culture and encouraging others to see the value, but also the challenges that we had. So the gift was that I learned about Robert Houston and the other artists, Joe Giordano, Dee Dwyer, and Devin Allen, and their power in terms of recording images and their power, especially Devin, that not only told the story, but put you right there in the center, front and center. You saw the image, but at the same time, you could hear the chants in the background. You could hear the noises in the back, but there was no noise. It was just a photograph, but it was three dimensional. It was 3D, you could hear it, and you were caught into it, which I think was important about Devin's. Dee's work, I think hers is very powerful in terms of capturing, again, the Black gaze and centering it in her southeast DC community, and the important figures that are there, from the rapper to another gentleman with his dog smoking a Black and Mild, and the ATVs, and the young lady with the beads in her hair. This again kind of grounds one in understanding Blackness, what Blackness is for her or for that community. And then her other photographs told the story of social justice, the Black Lives Matter. She captured beautifully Black Lives Matter images. And there was a photograph at the end that I loved, that my Blackness is not a threat. And it was her photograph, an image of herself. So yes, in Joe's wide angles, wide composition, it was again an introduction or reintroduction to Baltimore. Having gone to Micah, having lived in Baltimore, and then working in the DMV, zipping back and forth, but always seeing this rich culture, this risk, being open to risk, being open to new things, that I found the support of new and interesting things here in Baltimore. I found it really rich.
Yeah, I have two of the three, by the way. And the only person I haven't gotten yet is Dee. I've had Joe on. This interview is going to be after Devin Allen's, so that's coming up as well. So
that's great.
I'm working on the trifecta, so
that's good. Good Dwyer, yes.
It's going to be a little bit of a bundle. It's like a 3-part.
Okay, wonderful.
So I have two more questions before I get into those dangerous rapid fire questions. People are so scared of those rapid fire questions.
Oh, okay.
It's pretty funny to me. In recent years, there's been a shift to hide or suppress works that have been considered to be, I think, in poor taste, right? Should that be done with historical material that depicts African Americans, Black folk, in maybe blackface, caricature, or racist stereotypes? Because we like to act like it didn't exist, but as soon as someone calls it out. So what are your thoughts on that and balancing? This is what you guys considered to be artistic at one point, but now we suddenly don't want that out there.
Well, I think it's always done. It's about context, how it's presented. I think that I had a couple of years ago at Busboys Poets, I put a rope, the noose. I exhibited a noose and a Confederate flag. But the context of that was the woman in Richmond, Virginia, that was killed, that was hung by the noose. And the story, the images that were done told her story. So it was a context of all these, yes, a Confederate flag, we don't want to put it up. And of course, a noose is highly controversial. But again, the context, and plus, because, at Busboys, you can kind of do some of those risky things and that, and not, it's supposed to push you a little bit to think a little bit more about justice and truth.
Yeah.
So, and I think about other figures of R.V. Smith, I believe. He does a number of photographs that, again, are of caricatures somewhat of African Americans, a big smile and the wide white teeth and the big eyes. But again, they're the context of, and Walker, Carol Walker. I think in terms of her work, some of that is very, very, very difficult. Kara Walker. Those images, especially of the slave era and the massa, and are often sexualized. And I think that was part of the controversy of Carol Walker. But again, I think that the intention of her work was to bring about the injustice, or understanding the injustice, having a deeper understanding of deeper understanding of the meaning. So Kara has done other work since then, and she's a very prominent figure in contemporary American art.
Sure.
But I'm more favor of people like Jarrell Gibbs. I'm more favor of people like Derek Adams, because while the angst that Carol Walker gives, it is not the feeling I want to walk away from. Art, yes, it can be that angst or that message, but I want that message still to give me some sort of uplift. To me, the art is taking that moment to think about and then regurgitate. That representation, I look at it and think, is that part of my life? And then how am I going to regurgitate? What am I going to do about it? Yeah. And as I say, when I see the work, the angst kind of pieces, I have to really then think about, well, what am I going to do about this? Because this doesn't leave me with a sense of well-being.
Sure.
So, but it's all right. Not every piece has to leave me with a sense of well-being, and if it's really done beautifully and executed well, I can appreciate that. Yeah. But my preference is something else.
That's legit. Like, I've interviewed some folks, and I think as a person that tries to use his memory, when people, I can't believe this. Like, yeah, this was 3 years ago, when something that was considered racial or racist that was done. I think the key thing that you said there within that piece was the context. Like, we don't really look at context or nuance or anything. We look at interpretations of things in a very black and white way. Right. And the thing that I get caught on is whoever had the power to kind of put some of these things to the forefront, whether it be in popular media or in fine art. It's like, you guys chose this because you didn't have black people in the room to say, that ain't right. Or, so you need to sit in it a little bit. We need to be reminded of how crappy you were, as far as what you were choosing, but add that context to say this was in this time and things and ideas we've learned and we've grown, but to wipe it away like it didn't exist. Yeah,
right. No, right. I agree with you. No, wipe it away.
So last question I have, this is quasi rhetorical. I think I know the answer, but I'm still going to ask it.
This is the last question, and then the rapid fire ones.
Yes.
Okay. Good. All
right. Is a black curator just a curator? Why or why not?
Oh my goodness. I don't find that black is the focus. Black is what I mean by that. My focus is not with the Reginald F. Lewis Museum.
Sure.
My focus is African American art. but and I'm also a Black curator, a person of color that brings the history of my people, and I use that history, that important of trying to raise and raise voices of individuals that are not just people of color. When I was working in or organizing exhibitions at Busboys, I was working with all people. It was a diverse group.
Sure.
So I am a Black curator, but I'm interested in diverse voices, raising and uplifting diverse voices. I don't see, I remember somebody said Black art, you want to identify you as a Black artist because that only limits you. Oh, hell no. Black curator does not limit me in any way, shape, or form. That just tells you that I am proud of being a Black person. I am proud of having the Black art history background that I had, that I've worked with African-American artists and knowledgeable about African-American art, but at the same time, I have seen, or I'm aware of other art, the diverse voices that are in art. And for me, it is in no way a limitation. It is a groundedness in a sensibility of the world, of understanding oppression, of understanding a lack of vision and a lack of voice. So therefore, when I move and choose, I'm looking for freedom. I'm looking for expressions of connection. See, you getting me started.
I was about to say, talk that talk. Here we go. I knew what I was doing when I asked that question too. I'm happy to be a Black artist, a Black curator, and I love being able to give voice to those voices or to those artists who don't have the opportunity or need the opportunity to be able to express their vision of the world. Well, thank you. And thank you for sharing that. Yeah. I think that's a good spot where we can get to these rapid fire questions. All right. So these rapid fire questions, they're pretty much, it's almost a continuation of what you just did. Like, look, I said what I said. It's always a continuation of that. So I got 4 of them for you.
Okay.
What is the most surprising fact about the Reginald F. Lewis Museum? It's just something that people just wouldn't know. Like, I went to Morgan, and one of my classes, we were sponsored by the museum. We were sponsored by the Reginald F. Lewis Museum. So I always had like some knowledge of the museum, but not a lot. So, feel free to enlighten.
I think one of the things, the important fact is the importance of the collection and how the collection of 11,000 objects that we have that actually, I'm really, really beginning to get into because of the idea of material culture and how the material culture really helps to give identity and substance to culture. And that all the different things that we have from 1800s to the, and how Black people continue to strive. I remember when I took I went to Howard and as art, I think I may have mentioned that, and I took an African-American history class. And one of the first things that the professor said, when we really look around and understand, if we take away the images that are in the dominant culture, and we recognize the reality, Black people have strived or have always striven to do better. Your parents try to do better. Your cousins' parents try to do better. And that in these collections, we look and I see how, you didn't have to go to get a PhD. We had people that were barbers, and the things that they did in order to be of substance and to create a world and a life for themselves and their community. The military people, the things that we have of a military collection. I'm just finding all those things fascinating, and photographs. There's just, to me, there's just so much in terms of really grounding books that have been donated, grounding the culture in And I'm gonna throw this in here. I'm sorry.
No.
I was doing research for an exhibition on slavery, and I watched a video or a conversation with a historian by the name of Vincent Brown. I believe he's at Harvard or Yale. I'm sorry. But all this was to say he's written some books on slavery. And one of the things that he said was that slavery is not an onus on people of color, on us. He said, it is really on the society, the dominant society, because when you look at Black people and you look at the genius of Black people, how we survived, how we ran away, how we resisted, how we had the Underground Railroad, how we did this and how we did that. It shows the genius of our people. Yeah. And when I look at the collection, it's not an exceptionality. There's not an exceptional Black man or the genius that we had, even in terms of trying to make sure our children had books, and we were working, cleaning somebody's house or ironing their clothes, the genius that we as a people had and continue to have, and how this collection, documents that.
Thank you. That's great. Now I need to go to the museum now. Thank you. Thank you for now. I just need to drop what I'm doing. This podcast is over. I'm going to hit down.
Well, you have to wait till we get our exhibitions. More will be up in the end of this month, February. We have the Men of Change exhibition coming from the Smithsonian sites, which is really wonderful and fabulous, and a lot of programming involved with that.
So I have three more, and these are going to be really quickly.
I'm fine.
No. So what is your favorite film? Told you I was going to get you with this one.
Yes. And I think I mentioned to you that it is the Tom Hanks film on Mr. Rogers.
A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood.
Yeah, Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. I just happened to watch it, and it was just beautiful. It was a beautiful movie. I do watch a lot of police procedure, Blue Bloods and FBI, and I love mysteries, but I really love the story, the richness, that Tom Hanks, that story told of Mr. Rogers.
Great. Since I know that I was wrapping up before we got started, I was wrapping up eating lunch. So that made me think about this question. What is your favorite meal? Let's say some people, they have a bad day and they're like, look, I need that guilty pleasure. I need some shrimp and grits. I need a fish sandwich. What is that meal for you that you're like, this is going to make me feel better?
Oh man, there's so many.
That's an honest answer.
There's so many. Let's see. So first, the Busboys and Poets, of course, and those sweet potato pancakes. That breakfast you got. Oh my God, it's so serious. The sweet potato pancakes with the scrambled eggs and what have you. The next thing is crab cakes from Phillips, or I'm from Kansas City, Missouri again, and Gates Barbecue would have some of the best food, and it still has some of the best food, but I can't go to Gates. So in each region seems to have its own kind of taste, its own kind of food. Yeah. And this region is crab cakes and seafood. So the crab cakes, and I'm open to learning more about other places that have crab cakes, because I love, and I make my own as well.
I do too.
I love some crab cakes. Yes, I've learned to do that. So sweet potato pancakes, crab cakes. Oh, and the fried chicken too at Busboys and Poets. And it's not on a bone. They debone it. It's the breast, and then the greens, and then they have this mushroom gravy on the potatoes. It's pretty good.
I always joke with people because I'm a boneless chicken guy, and if I'm eating fried chicken, I was like, look, I'm a civilized person. I don't need a bone. I don't need any.
Right.
Just give me the meat.
Right. And it's pretty decent. It's decent. It's that's my go-to meal now.
Okay.
Is there any place else? That's it, I think. Really.
This is the last question I have out of for the whole thing.
Oh, I'm gonna be so sorry. This is getting ready to wrap up. I've enjoyed these questions.
Oh, well, thank you.
I've enjoyed our talk.
This has been great. This has been fun. What like, and I guess this is inside dope. What are three tools that you use to do your day to day? It can be, is there an app on your phone? Is it, I got to use a MacBook when I'm doing my thing, when I'm doing my research? Is it, I need to take pictures for inspiration? What are three tools that help you do your day to day?
First tool, I think that it is the idea and the concept of just getting up. And in face, and I think along this lifetime that I have had, there's been so many challenges, and so for me, the first tool really every day is getting up, and then having a grateful attitude, being able to say, okay, well, I messed up, but that taught me how to be a person of integrity. I'm not going to focus on the crime that I may have committed, but I will focus on, that gave me a sense of greater integrity. I will never do that again. Not it was necessarily a crime, but just different. It's just getting up, having the positive and thankful attitude. That's really one. That's the first thing in terms of a tool. The second tool that I feel that I use is when all these are not necessarily what I would call things that are touchable. The other tool is the communication between myself and my family.
Sure.
I feel that that's a tool of also encouraging me to get up, do better, and to do best, because of the importance of leaving a legacy, the importance of being able to support, being able to repeat that which my family did for me. So that's a tool that, I want to continue to give. I want to continue to be able to push and to be able to uplift. So get up, connect with family and uplift. And the third tool is beauty in my life. Always incorporate beauty in my life. It is, my family will tell you, although I don't live, my children are gone, or I live alone now, but all the noise I used to make and still make when I see wonderful art, because artists send in their work to me, and these joyous reactions or these incredible reactions I have when I see some incredible work. So it is the joy. It is the importance of the beauty and working with the beauty that is an important tool. And yes, I find that I do droop. I become much droopier. I become a little different when I'm not really working in the arts.
That makes sense. That's, it's from the get, it seems like it's just like having a passion and a zest for what you're doing and making sure that you're solid to go into what you're doing in the course of the day. And I agree. When I'm feeling empty and I'm feeling down, it's like, I can have the conversation. I can mail it in, but it's like, I'm not going to have that same zeal and that same zest for learning about what this person is doing and having an engaged conversation. I feel like I'm doing a disservice to them and a disservice. So setting it up that you're right, you get up with the right energy and you go through the day with the right energy, that just prepares you to be successful.
Right. Exactly.
So we're kind of done with the questions there, but I want to invite you to share anything, plug anything that you want, the Reginald F. Lewis website, any personal website and social media, whatever you want to share. It's a shameless plug time, I guess.
Okay, shameless plug time. Yes, please come to the Reginald F. Lewis Museum. The Men of Change exhibition that will start, and we have a number of wonderful programming. You have to check the website to see the dates and times. really wonderful. I'm really not quite able to confirm specific ones. I know Clint Smith is going to be talking about history, and I'm looking at a number of artist talks. But yes, that and again, I want to encourage, because I have this, and I've had this connection to Busboys. Yes. There's wonderful art and wonderful opportunity, art on the walls of Busboys and Poets. And it's such a communal space. It was my family for 9 years.
So that's the lewismuseum.org.
lewismuseum.org. That's correct.
So there you have it, folks. I want to thank you again, Carol Rhodes-Dyson. Thank you for being on this podcast. It's been great.
Oh, it's been great for me, Rob Lee.
So for Carol Rhodes-Dyson, I am Rob Lee, saying that there's art in and around Baltimore. You just got to look for it.